It reads exactly like a bog standard script for a B-grade horror. Strange things are going on in a small town with crappy petrol stations where even Toyotas automatically break down for no explicable reason. Nameless North Sea islands where paganism flourishes, and people stare at strangers when they enter the pub, and everyone is born colourblind, lives permanently in black and white. Mandatory unkempt mansions with rumours of evils going on, nosy teens with no sense of danger. This story involves many of those ingredients. Sadly, no disembowelments. The closest I can get here today is Morris dancing. Start off with an obscure country most people haven't got a clue about. Doesn't even appear on maps. Then put it in a town 90% of the occupants of the country have even heard about. I can't be nice, 99%. As a lead character, what say a doctor who had run a mission medical clinic in deepest darkest Africa, dabbled in the occult and wrote about voodoo, started his own mysterious religious order along with the mandatory nice couple who lure the viewer into thinking they are the only normal ones in town, the only ones good to know and confide your concerns, only for them to turn out they are donkey deep into it as well. A spooky cottage on the edge of town. Ivy-covered mansion with secret rooms in the basement, hidden behind a Nadia-like wardrobe. Locals that are plainly a bit odd, even by Hawke's Bay standards at the time. Run the city council. Design a cryptic roundabout in the centre of town resembling a pentagram. Apart from probably the pentagram bit, I just created for spice, the rest is true. The Havelock Work. A story that starts at the tail end of a period of unsurpassed creativity and exploration. That momentous cauldron created when bored Anglicans went forth into the world and did shit. Two of whom are pictured: the Australian Reginald Gardner, who met his Canadian wife Ruth in London and settled in New Zealand in the mid-1880s, Havelock North in 1907. The names of their three children were Tony, Faith and Michael. The youngest, Michael, was a girl. Clearly they'd wanted a boy. Both his father and uncle were Anglican vicars. His uncle was at the local church, St Luke's. The Gardners, along with a local called Harold Large, not a lot on that chappie, other than he had a literary vent, they started a community group with minor esoteric religious element to start off with. What exactly that religious element is hard for a layman like me and you to get a grip on. When I googled a Theosophy, it came up with mention metaphysics in my company and I feel the onset of a headache, like I'm about to debate Christopher Hitchens. Things you and I will understand about this fledgling church were meditation, pageants, the very English habits of high teas, tending to gardens and fates, putting on plays by Shakespeare, and the rest like pathways and resurrected Greek gods, probably not. The gardener's cottage they built and lived in is still bouncing about today. Havelock Work produced its own newsletter, The Forerunner. If you can decipher the gardener's overview of what the magazine is all about, you are better than me. A hardcore of 50 were soon involved with the group of philosophical hippies. Amongst the smorgasbord of ideas they were dabbling with were Rudolf Steiner's anthroposophy, the round table of the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn. I'm just going to call them Golden Dawn from here on in, as the headache I mentioned has begun. Within the Havelock Work, the ones that were not interested in stage productions scones on the lawn, was the hardcore, the Society of the Southern Cross, who had adopted a lot of what Golden Dawn had been up to. Oh yeah, I better describe what they were all about, hadn't I? Since all the stuff about reincarnating Greeks meant it had only lasted 20 years back in England. So effectively by 1907, 1908, 1909, Golden Dawn was dead in its homeland. Golden Dawn were a secret society, the ugly love child of another better-known secret society, one that likely has an ornate Oamaru stone building where you live. Freemasonry adopted their grades, or degrees to be more correct, to progress up the hierarchy. They did allow chicks though, not Catholics. Active in British high society in the late 18th century, Golden Dawn incorporated what we now call occult practices, like trying to talk to your dead grandmother and ask her what she did with the old jewellery, flipping tarot cards hoping death wasn't in the pack, and they had a fascination with ancient Egypt. Just read one of their ciphers about their core principles and it will all make sense. Alarmingly, Golden Dawn did make sense to luminaries like Bram Stoker, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and William Butler Yeats. Also, a British doctor called Dr Robert Felkin, who headed one of the orders, the Order of Stella Matutina. That's Latin for morning star, so let's just run with that. Falcon was at one time amongst the world's leading experts on tropical diseases, despite the fact he suffered severely due to malaria. A well-known English author with a bestseller on his time as a missionary in Uganda and the Sudan. Having a well-read book at the time was akin to being a pop star with a top 20 hit. He had rubbed shoulders with Abdul Baha, the founder of the Baha'i faith, occultist Austrian Rudolf Steiner, and even the explorer David Livingstone, to name but a few. I'm going to skip much of Falcon's time in Africa, England and Scotland, so I can keep this under a day. Other than indicating he was a GP and his second wife, Harriett, was a self-professed psychic. He had a daughter from his first marriage called Ethelwyn, Ethelyn, only 10 years separated daughter from stepmother. Australian-born Harriett would play a significant part in the Hawke's Bay. Mr. Felkin was Batman and Mrs. Felkin Robin. Harriett was also profoundly deaf and lip-read. Fair to say, she wore the trousers. How did the Falcons end up in New Zealand? One of the board COVs I told you about was Reverend Fitzgerald, who was also a closet member of Golden Dawn, call it what you like. In 1910 he was on a church visit to New Zealand and he ran into Mr. Gardner's uncle, the vicar, who was also a member of the Society of the Southern Cross. Remember, at this point Golden Dawn was in terminal decline in the UK, and Fitzgerald was delighted to see it flourishing in the Antipodes. Upon his return he told the Falcons. Robert had always suffered from an array of afflictions for someone of his medical standing. He had been looking to shift to somewhere where the climate was more agreeable. Bingo. 2 years, and after a ton of correspondence with the likes of Large and the Gardners in terms of how do you run Morning Star, off the trio headed sunny Hawke's Bay. After a reconnaissance mission, they returned permanently, where they set up construction of a 3,000 square foot building they named Whare Ra. Whare means building in Maori, and Ra means sun in Maori, and as it happens, perchance, Ra also is the name of the Egyptian sun god. And technically the official name of Whare Ra was, pick the bones out of that, it would also double as a temple and doctor's office. Felkin became the town's first resident doctor. The location was on a sizable piece of semi-rural land, and devotees began buying up all the surrounding real estate. Under the stewardship of the Falcons, Morning Star flourished, and goodbye stuffy Sunday wooden pews. Check out the inner sanctum. That's a modern recreation, by the way. Ex-members describe the colours as being somewhat more drab. Inside this, 2 smaller side sanctums. Only those higher up, the peg, could enter. Members were sworn never to reveal its existence. There was no need to prophetise. People wanted to join. Membership was soon at 100, 20% of the local adult population at the time. They weren't short of a few bob either. The focus from selling preservatives and productions of Hamlet went to prayers, exercise and rituals. And who the hell would engage in such sort of malarkey? At varying stages, members included a bloke that was on New Zealand's Legislative Council, Napier Harbour Board, the editor of the Hawke's Bay Herald, 2 Anglican bishops, 3 members of Parliament, the highest ranking New Zealander at the Gallipoli campaign, even this bloke, Lord Jellicoe, who was Governor-General of New Zealand between 1920 and 24. Their influence in and around Havelock North and Hastings was pervasive. Not that the public of Hawke's Bay knew much or anything about this secret society in their midst. After all, they ran the local newspaper. The best anecdote I could find in my research to indicate their control over the town was this one. A wife of one of the members was worried about her hubby and what he was up to, spending all this time at Whare Ra, and grabbed hold of the local rumours it was a satanic cult. A lot of mystery, of course, surrounded the property and the group. As a good Christian, she thought the local authorities should investigate the goings-on, arranged a meeting with Havelock's mayor and town clerk. Both were members. Even after Robert Felkin's death in 1926, Morning Star and the Havelock Work boxed along with Harriett nominally in control and the relatives of the founders, neighbours, etc. now jumping all on board. Membership peaked in the mid-30s at around 400. That number is a bit speculative since secret societies need to be good at one thing. The movement spluttered along until Harriett's death in 1959. 59 wasn't a good year for them at all. Reginald Gardner also passed away that year as well. Ethel Wynne took over the family reins, but she died just 3 years later. With the orthodoxy of the ever-present Falcons and Gardners no longer holding it all together, things got weirder and a mite more sinister. Rituals began being performed that summoned demons. More people were leaving than joining. It all petered out in 1978. Its extinction in New Zealand meant the end of the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn worldwide. Whare Ra being the last temple. It's considered a Category A historic building today. One of its owners, hearing the rumours, had it exorcised. I really enjoyed researching this one. Only there's a sting in the tail. Only those that have got this far will get to hear. Apparently, very much innuendo, there was an episode of Jerry Springer in the late 90s. His guests on that ghastly show were Satanists. They pointed out there are places around the globe which are de facto plugs set up by Satan for his followers to draw power from. They indicated Havelock North as one. Don't look at that roundabout on your screen too long. You could turn into a frog. Bye for now.